Okay, so to proceed, let me start by just giving you a sense of where we stood at the beginning of 2017 on gender equality globally and how UNICEF has moved forward in its gender equality work given the context around us. On the one hand, we have a very positive situation with gender equality not only as a dedicated goal in the Sustainable Development Goals, goal number 5, but it's very fundamentally embedded in the poverty goal, in the hunger goal, the health goal, in education, pretty much all the goals, and many of those goals are very fundamental to UNICEF's work, obviously health and education and nutrition, water and sanitation. On the other hand, we have a number of challenges. We have growing uncertainty in the world about government commitments to gender equality. We have many repressive governments that have moved backward rather than forward. And that we have continued to have limited data in really unpacking the root causes of gender inequality, addressing them, mapping them, and being able to track them. And we know that resources for gender inequality, to address gender inequality, remain limited and are always difficult to find because in the mainstreaming model, they sometimes get lost in everything else that organizations do. We have been working for the last 4 years, driven by the UNICEF Gender Action Plan, which has been part of also the strategic plan. And within that Gender Action Plan, there have been three program areas that we have focused on. So one has been the 4 targeted priorities around empowering adolescent girls on gender responsive adolescent health, girls' secondary education, ending child marriage, and gender-based violence in emergencies. A second focus has been mainstreaming gender equality into all of UNICEF's sectoral programs, the 7 outcome areas that were part of the previous strategic plan. And then there was an institutional strengthening component of building gender capacity, improving data, and especially resources and knowledge management around gender. So a lot of the results, because the strategic plan and the gender action plan for these 4 years have ended, a lot of the results that I'll be talking about cover the 4 years and give a broader span and not just 2017. So I'll move quickly to the first program area, the empowering of adolescent girls. I think this is an area, because we made it a targeted area of work within UNICEF, we really achieved very good results in the last 4 years. Our country programs really picked up on the empowerment of adolescent girls as a priority. They understood the importance of the interlinkages between the 4 targeted priorities. And we're seeing, because of UNICEF's participation and acceleration on many of these areas, some very remarkable and exciting results, although there's a long way to go. So we now note that the child marriage rates in the last decade have declined by 15%, and some of the countries that we have prioritized in the last 4 or 5 years are showing really accelerated declines, in particular India, Ethiopia, and Zambia. And the global rates on child marriage are showing us, UNICEF just released in March data showing that 25 million child marriages were averted because of the programs and the acceleration that governments have done over the last decade. And with the UNICEF programs, we reached over 11 million community members in more than 60 countries that have now prioritized child marriage as a priority. There are many other results of reaching girls with schooling, reaching them with life skills, with all other kinds of support that we can go into when we have our conversation. And of course, a key interlinked result to child marriage is keeping girls in school, and especially secondary school, as they become adolescents. And again, UNICEF programs reach 2 million adolescent girls with skills and school support. And in countries like Nigeria, which have been really hard to move on education, we see now a 30% increase in girls' enrollment in schooling. Similarly, on the gender responsive adolescent health, an area that UNICEF works on is antenatal and postnatal care and skilled birth attendance. And we see some really exciting results. We have 71 countries by the end of 2017 that have over 80% coverage on skilled birth attendance for adolescent mothers. And I can't remember the baseline, but it was in the 30s when we started in 2014. So we have really improved. And then even in countries like Thailand, where skilled birth attendance is not a problem, but sexual and reproductive health, knowledge and services are a problem. We're now reaching young people through the internet, through apps. So a Teen Mom app reached, over 150,000 adolescents in Thailand, for example. And then on gender-based violence in emergencies, unfortunately, emergencies have only increased in the last 4 years. So we have had a bigger and bigger challenge. And UNICEF had to reach over 8 million girls, boys, and women with gender-based violence support services in the last 4 years in 52 countries. And 80,000 girls and women were reached with safe spaces in Lebanon and Iraq alone, which, as you know, are two areas where emergencies have been especially acute and long-lasting. Then on mainstreaming, I think the results were good, but perhaps not as exciting as they were for adolescent girls. But we see movement there as well. We have more countries that give us sex disaggregated mortality estimates. Countries like Ethiopia and Haiti are eliminating maternal and neonatal tetanus, nutrition plans in countries for women and reducing anemia the number of countries have increased. Similarly, protection policies that are more gender relevant have improved in more countries are there. Certainly water and sanitation and hygiene in primary schools has been a priority for UNICEF, and we have doubled the number of countries that are doing that. So things are moving on the mainstreaming, but the results are perhaps not as fantastic. Institutional strengthening, we are quite proud. I mean, you can see already in the room, we have 3 gender team members, a couple online, and 4 years ago we had only 2 people in headquarters, and we now have a team of about 10 or 15. And this picture shows you what a fabulous extended network we have developed, a community within UNICEF, or a much larger number of experts, more connected online, and we're launching a very exciting program that we started in 2017 called Gender Pro that I can tell you all about, that's embedded in our new plan to improve gender capacity at UNICEF and among partners even more. Some of the lessons learned, just quickly to recapture, clearly the imagination and action by our staff and our partners were caught much more by targeted priorities than by mainstreaming results. And this is something we'd love to discuss with you, because mainstreaming gender seems to remain a big challenge globally, because if you do targeted priorities, you do small programs, and we've tried to make them bigger. If you mainstream gender, it gets lost in the larger work, and it's difficult to find. And so it's a point for discussion. We think that we have taken important approaches to scaling up gender work, and this remains a challenge. We often require catalytic funds to infuse into mainstreaming programs where we say this is the value add that gender is bringing, and here are the extra funds that will give you the kick that's going to make you achieve bigger results to take things to scale, and that remains a challenge. And then we have emerging areas that are now embedded into our new strategic plan and new gender action plan that we're actually quite excited about because they are within UNICEF's domain, but we hadn't worked on them as much, but we are now starting to really pick up speed on them. And two of them are women and girls' burden of care work, where we know that children get shortchanged because women are not being able to give the full time or resources to supporting children, why they have so many demands on their time, and also in gender socialization, bringing up boys and girls as equals from early on through adolescence, and how do we change gender norms by really working with children and their families and boys and men, husbands, fathers, and mothers from early on. And then let me tell you, unfortunately, we have not had a huge amount of gender thematic funding, but we are grateful to Luxembourg for having given us close to $1 million that we have utilized very effectively. And in particular, we used those funds to catalyze innovation for gender results. And so we have some very exciting results, for example, in Rwanda, where girls were more at risk of dropping out of school, and we worked with the Ministry of Education to provide tablets with remedial learning apps for advanced gender equitable results. And we have 118 schools benefiting from that strategy, which hopefully then goes to scale because it's with the government. Similarly, in East Asia and Pacific, the funds from Luxembourg have really helped us to catalyze our work on menstrual hygiene management. And menstrual hygiene management has emerged as a very big area that had started as small, and we are now looking at technology as a very critical way of moving forward on supporting girls on menstrual hygiene management. So moving forward, just to give you a picture of where gender is embedded in the new strategic plan, it is in every goal area. And there are three themes for going forward that we're focusing on. One is on equality for girls and boys. A second is for supporting men and boys and women and girls and communities to have more equal roles and responsibilities with regard to children. And then third, of course, the empowerment and well-being of adolescent girls remains a priority. And this time we have added menstrual hygiene management as a separate fifth area in addition to the four that we already had. And we have picked up on girls' education, secondary education, to add skills in science, technology, engineering, and math as priority areas as well. So we look forward to hearing from you and seeing how we can partner and continue to move UNICEF's gender equality work forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Anju. We have Finland who have just joined us, so welcome. I just wanted, before we open up for questions, if you had a major ask to our partners, what would that be for gender? Because we know for gender it's different than the rest.
Yeah.
We need to keep the momentum.
I think the major ask would be to recognize that I know many partners give UNICEF funds for assuming that we will be supporting gender equality, and we do. I think that systems and the way things work, it would be clearer if we could have catalytic funding in the Gender Thematic Fund so that become incentive money for the things that our sectors want to do and cross-sectoral work, for data, for innovations that can't be done through the other goal areas. And if we had partnership with you in tracking the resources that we do spend within sectors in a more clear way, that what is going to gender. And I know many of you are interested in that, and we look forward to working with you perhaps on second, third generation gender markers and trackers. So that would be my clear ask.
Great, thank you very much.